I mean, that's where the other cards you put in that place really shine.
And most of them moved over to being like a Zenith-based deck as opposed to a Summoning Trap deck, which makes counterspells a lot better against them. That's why moving the Spark Mages to the main, not playing as much counter magic, could make that type of match problematic.
Absolutely. So we've seen that there. I mean, we've seen some of the other exciting decks. And
ooh, look at this. We've got a match going.
With our feature match of round 2. We have
leading off with Lou Laskin. Lou Laskin's playing an innovative deck. He's playing green-white aggro.
Oh, that's exciting. And you said you were watching him play earlier. What were some of the cards you saw in his deck?
He has Vengevines. He has Lead the Stampedes. He has Baneslayer Angel. He has Lotus Cobra. His deck can do very, very powerful things.
You said he also
fast.
has Overwhelming Stampede. Correct?
Yes, he has 2 copies of Overwhelming Stampede.
6 Stampedes, so it's kind of the green-white things you would expect, and here we are with some deck lists to tell you all about what's going on here. So Louis Laskin, we've got some of the common culprits. And we just did a deck tech on him, I'm being informed, so if you look on the website, it'll be up pretty shortly. But his deck has Vengevine and Squadron Hawk, Fauna Shaman, Llanowar Elf, Birds of Paradise, and Lotus Cobra for its 4 ofs, and then it has a bunch of cool one of Fauna Shaman targets. It's got Soul's Attendant, interesting, Molten Tail Masticore, Linvala, Phyrexian Revoker, Baneslayer Angel, and Acidic Slime. Then the 6 Stampedes, as we talked about. What do you think that Soul's Attendant is for?
I'm not really sure. I asked them about it. I think it's pretty bad. I don't know. They're known to have a loose card or 2 in their list.
I mean,
crews, so
I guess if you draw it, it's kind of sweet if you find it against Coldotha Red. That's true. So that's his deck list. But his opponent, Justin Shelton, looks like he's playing a very similar deck to what Jerry played last week. He's got Stoneforge Mystic, Squadron Hawks, it's a blue-white Copblade, all the way down, 3 main deck Gideon Jura, 4 Lightning Bolts, and he has his Cunning Spark Mages on the sideboard. So this is it, the matchup we wanted to see, the innovative green-white deck against the blue-white-red deck that's been at the top of the format for the past couple weeks, and we'll see if Lewis really does have the advantage in this matchup. And there's a picture of Justin for you right there, wielding his Stoneforge Mystics.
Yeah, Lewis was saying to me that this is the match that he wants to play against all day.
Wow.
That if he plays against enough Caw-Blade, he's confident that there's not really much of a way for him to lose.
Well, if he wants to play against Caw-Blade all day, this seems like a pretty good field for it, right? I mean, with
he's
the success,
he's a pretty good player. So
yeah, all the top players have been opting. Everywhere on Facebook, it's does anybody have a Caw-Blade deck for me to borrow? So the cards are in high demand, and the players are keeping them. So here we go. There's Birds of Paradise down, and a Llanowar Elf, and here comes Vengevine back. It's going to crash in for 7. Yeah, Vengevine is such a strong card against the control-based decks. I mean, without Path to Exile in the format, without Oblivion Ring, so, it might have some Journey to Nowheres potentially in the sideboard, but
yeah. Now, one of the big issues with this deck, right, the green-white type aggro deck, in the past has been that it's just so weak to Day of Judgment, and now, like with the mid-range aggro deck, the Caw-Blade deck playing Day of Judgment anywhere from like 3 to 4 in the 75. Like decks like this, people might be worried to play them. Lead the Stampede helps solve that problem really well. Vengevine's also really good, and the deck's just surprisingly resilient. Like he is this much on the table. He has like a huge board presence, and he is still like pretty Day of Judgment proof. Yeah. He has another Lead the Stampede in his hand. Like that's like in his deck that's averages like probably like 3.5 to 3.75 guys.
Yeah.
Like that's.
Wow.
That's a good card.
Yeah, let's see. Lewis has 24 lands and 6 spells with 30 creatures. So, about 1 in every other card is going to be a creature. So, 2 to 3 cards. Oh, and here comes down Overwhelming Stampede. And Justin takes a moment to look at it, pushes it toward him, counts it up. And this is going to be bad news for Mr. Shelton. Oh, and here comes the Mana Leak. And he's paying for it. And there's a Spell Pierce. Ooh, nice. And then cracks him for 7 again. Yeah, I mean, one of the other big issues with the green-white aggro deck has been reach traditionally, too, because, if you have red, you can be like, well, okay, I got you down to 6, I can lightning bolt you out or something. But in green-white, you don't have that potential. But with Vengevine, it just gives you that extra reach because, if after the Day of Judgment, like you said, you can just be like, okay, well, I had 2 guys, guy, Vengevine, take you down. And so Justin lays the plains here, sitting at a precarious 3 life.
Yeah, no, he's really just got to have
Here comes his
Ooh.
1 copy of Baneslayer Angel.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty good.
He has 61 cards in his deck, and so that might as well be his 61st card. Oh, and there's a Linvala. And Lewis is forced to pass back. Now, of course, without any way to remove the Baneslayer Angel, that's going to be a huge problem for him because the green-white deck doesn't have any way to deal with it. Now, he can draw another Overwhelming Stampede potentially and trample over or maybe amount enough guys, but you do risk the problem of overextending.
I think the card he really wants to draw now is Molten Tail Masticore. I think that would be ideal.
Absolutely. The Masticore would give him some reach as well as the other
Overwhelming Stampede
is obviously great. And Fauna Shaman could potentially go find that Masticore. Lewis also has a Baneslayer Angel of his own, which would at least serve to trade with the opposing Baneslayer Angel.
Yeah.
And here comes down Squadron Hawk to gum up the board.
Yeah. He's bringing the whole squad.
Just shows you how resilient that deck is.
Yeah.
You know, a moment ago it looked like he was way behind, and then Baneslayer Angel followed by a wave of Squadron Hawks, and he's going to have a nice little stream of blockers. All right.
Lou's probably going to lead a Stampede.
Oh, just passes back.
Huh.
For those of you just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey here with Jacob Van Lunen, and we're watching the Round 2 feature match between Louis Laskin and Justin Shelton here at the Star City Games Open Series in Edison. Laskin is playing a really innovative green-white deck that's got some interesting takes on things. It's got some Overwhelming Stampedes, got some Vengevines for reach, and he says this is his best matchup. He would be happy if he was facing the blue-red-white Cobblade all day. On the left, we have Justin Shelton, who is playing that very deck.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's actually happier to play against just blue-white Cobblade. I think that would be his
or perhaps a 60-card blue-white Cobblade without that one Baneslayer Angel to gum up.
Ooh, that Day of Judgment actually serves Lou pretty well. Now, Justin's going to play a Squadron Hawk, but now Lou's going to be able to bring back that Vengevine.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why Justin did that there, because one of the advantages of playing a deck like Lewis's is he doesn't know how many copies of Overwhelming Stampede are in his deck. He doesn't know, like, if he has Journey to Nowhere or any other outs. So he's like, well, I could just sit here, but it's an easy way to lose, where if I just crack the Day of Judgment now and, you know, play out some Squadron Hawks, well, I'm not going to be gaining the life or have the blocker anymore, but it's a bigger chance for me to get back in the game.
Yep.
And there comes the notorious Squadron Hawk right there. Okay, and Lewis corrects fetch land. Sifting through his deck, and he seems pretty excited about this one. 5. Did he draw his Baneslayer Angel?
Or that is definitely a possibility. It's a pretty good one to draw if he did. Ooh, a Vengevine and a Llanowar
followed by another Vengevine back from the graveyard. And this is going to be 4 damage for Justin right here. So just like that, he's chopped all the way back down to 3.
And he doesn't have another Baneslayer in his deck, so things are looking pretty rough for him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Gideon Jura, still a pretty decent card to draw, could potentially buy some time, but
Well, Gideon Jura, you're just basically tapping your lands, and then it resets itself.
Right, unless you have like a bolt or something to follow it up with.
It's just a 5-minute time walk.
Exactly. Not good enough these days. Time warp.
If it was legal, it would definitely be good enough. I'd be slinging some time warps.
Okay, here comes Stoneforge Mystic.
No, that's not a bad answer to this board. If he has another land, he gets Sword Equip. The problem is that he's at 3, so
well, yeah, if he Sword Equips, he loses.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think the thing that he would want here is to go for Day of Judgment, but the fact that he played his Mystic first tells us he clearly doesn't have access to it.
Yeah.
And so here comes the Sword of Feast and Famine, and I feel like Justin is still playing out the game. He still feels like he has a chance to win, so let's see what he rattles off here. All right, so another Squadron Hawk to block. And he passes back to Lewis.
Lewis crashes with the team.
Yeah, pretty quickly. And then there goes some blockers. Justin drops to 2. And looks to the top of his deck for an answer. Fans out his hand. I see a Spell Pierce.
At this point, he has got like a Spell Pierce, a sword, and I think he's just dead to this attack.
Yeah. And he serves in, and yep, here come the cards. So now we're going to the sideboards here. And Justin's sideboard seems pretty traditional. Those Cunning Spark Mages are going to be great for him in this matchup. And then you have Inferno Titan, maybe Ratchet Bomb, Flash Freeze are all okay cards you could bring in.
Yeah, but wait,
Lewis's deck.
We have a little special thing that makes Cunning Spark Mage not so exciting. We have Linvala, Keeper of Silence.
And which Lewis showed Justin in the first game. Yeah, this sideboard by Lewis Laskin is rife with interesting things. He obviously took his Fauna Shaman to the extreme and has plenty of one-ups. He has a Leatherback Baloth, a Core Hookmaster, a Core Skyfisher, a Glimmerpoint Stag, a Linvala, a Viridian Corruptor, an Obstinate Baloth, and one Colony Hydra.
The Colony Hydra is certainly a mistake.
And then after that, we have 3 Nature's Claim, 3 Journey to Nowhere, which aren't the creatures you can find up. And he's got a single Gideon Jura, which is clearly non-tutorable. So Lewis, wow, he's really backing on those Fauna Shamans for his sideboard.
I mean, it seems worthwhile. It lets his sideboard be really diverse. It also makes his opponents have to play around like a lot of different cards.
Absolutely, because I mean, in the first game, right? Like just alone in the first game. First of all,
he's also gotten his deck to a point where like if his opponent lets him untap with a Fauna Shaman, it's very difficult for Lewis's deck to lose.
Oh, absolutely.
So
when you start chaining Vengevines, and you can get a Squadron Hawk and get up on cards again. The interesting thing.
Can stag their Baneslayer out of the way and crash. Like,
yeah,
it's not even that unreasonable.
I don't know if this is the matchup for Stag, but I could certainly see that, sure. They could Core Hookmaster their Baneslayer Angel out of the way and attack. But see, this is an interesting dynamic because Lewis saw the one Baneslayer Angel from Justin in the first game. So he's like, well, maybe he's got more Baneslayer Angels where that one came from. So
yeah, so he might be hooking or...
Right, exactly.
You know.
Where on the flip side, Justin has no idea really what's going on in Lewis's deck. He saw an overwhelming Stampede. He saw the one Linvala Keeper of Silence.
Yeah, he saw the lead Stampede. I mean, he knows what Lewis's deck does now. The question is like, that's a pretty hard thing to overcome. Like being like, well, this guy's deck is very clearly built to take advantages of the things that my deck overlooks. So he's got to be in a little bit of a frustrated spot at this point. He might just think the deck's awesome now. He might just be like, I have all these swords to give my guys pro green. I don't care. And if Justin's on the play and he has a draw with bolt into action, if he actually curves out well, his deck can do a lot of damage here.
Players shuffling up for game 2.
Now, Lou played a really interesting Green Sun Zenith deck in Legacy last week, and he top 16 the tournament. He's telling me about that. I think he's probably playing the same deck again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll find a feature match of him. His best matchup, right? Sorry.
All right, so the players are presenting, and
so the players are representing for game 2. Shuffled each other's decks, and we have some opening hands to try to look at here.
All right, so let's see what we have going on.
Ooh, I see a Core Sanctifier in Lou Laskin's hand. Justin ships his hand back. Lewis does the same. Yeah, I didn't see any 1 or 2 drops in Lewis's opening hand, and that's got to be a rough spot to be in against Caw-Blade when you're the green-white player, right?
And especially you can mulligan pretty safely because you look down at your list. You have, let's see, you have 9 1-drops and 4 8s, 9, 13 2-drops, and then there's anything else he brought in. I'm trying to look in the sideboard. I don't think he brought in any extra 1 or 2 drops there. But even then, you know.
And I mean, Lead the Stampede does a surprisingly good job of recovering from mulligans.
Right, absolutely. Even if you mulligan down to 6, you can just lead back in. I was at a PTQ last weekend, and I'm this Elves player in the top 8, mulligan to 5 2 games in a row, and and just one lead the Stampede, and he was right back in it. I remember walking around the table, like he kept a mulligan down to 5, like went force. I was like, oh, this game is over. And I walked around the table, and he had like 9 elves in play, and just the power of lead the Stampede just can draw you so many cards.
It's a surprisingly strong draw spell that I'm sure it hasn't seen its full potential yet. Just have to wait for there to be a combo deck and extended its creature based again.
Yeah, only a matter of time until I think someone figures out the correct elves combo list as opposed to the aggro list.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
As 2 men who love our elf combo decks.
Oh, I love me some elf combo.
All right, so the players lead off, both with fetch lands. Lewis did not find a 1-drop.
Lewis does have the combination of a single Squadron Hawk on the draw with some Vengevines, which he could use to power in a lot. Like, he might be declining to play a 1-drop in order to get an exceptionally powerful turn 3, where he perhaps puts multiple Vengevines into play. That's a line of play that Luke could be looking at right now. It looks to me like he has 2 Vengevines, so.
And let's see. He searches for a mountain first, so maybe that's a tell. He might have Lightning Bolt in his hand, and we're going to see, yep, Squadron Hawk comes down.
Squadron Hawk is just such a powerful card. The way it interacts with Jace.
Yeah, it can do so many powerful things. I mean,
Ancestral Recalls forever. That's
yeah,
pretty good.
Like, it just, A, it shuffles your deck. B, you can just be like, okay, put 2 back on top, cast a Squadron Hawk, draw my 2 Squadron Hawks, you know. And then plus, like, just the 1/1 body is so huge. Picks up a sword, a body in mind, or sort of like, or a sort of Feast and Famine. Okay, so here comes Fauna Shaman down for Lewis. So Justin took the opportunity to tap out, and Fauna Shaman is going to be a big issue. Justin taking the opportunity to read over that Fauna Shaman. But the fact that Justin searched for his mountain first indicates to me he might have Lightning Bolt in his hand, so maybe we'll see that come down almost certainly if Justin in fact has the bolt.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first saw Squadron Hawk, I was tempted to make a ton of decks that played 4 Jace and 4 Sea Beyond along with the Squadron Hawks. Then we did see a bolt for that Fauna Shaman, which is, you know, it definitely dampens Lou's plan a little bit, but Lou's hand seems like it has, you know, a lot of power here. Like, if he hits a lucky lead the Stampede, he could do some very, very sick things on his next turn. Especially against an opponent who's struggling with his mana. Now let's see this lead the Stampede.
Okay, well, let's see what he finds here. So he gets all the creatures, not just green creatures. So, oh, yep, 2 Linvalas and a Squadron Hawk.
Now, that's not as exciting as it could have been. The Squadron Hawk he could have gotten anyway. He had a Squadron Hawk in his hand.
Right. And the 2 Linvalas are, like, okay, but certainly not what you want at this point in the game.
Yeah, he really wanted to hit, like, a 4th creature there so that he could have discarded that Vengevine on his end step.
All right. So it looks like Lewis showed him the Linvala to clarify what he took into his hand. And here comes a correct Scalding Tarn by Justin.
So that's good. Justin drew a 3rd land.
Yeah.
He's back in this game.
And he's almost certainly going to get an island, yeah. A nice full art Zendikar island.
This deck is just so powerful. The blue-white-red Cawblade deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was testing earlier in the week, we were really just racking our brains, like how you can really make a deck that has better than 60% win percentage against this, and it's just really hard.
The thing about the deck is it does so many diverse things, right? I mean, it can attack you on an angle of just, okay, well, turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic, go find a sword.
The other thing is that it never runs out of cards. Like, I've seen a lot of people cut down to 26 land, but I think 27 land is almost definitely right, because when you play the deck, you're never out of cards. You can just, like, afford to play this game where you just literally, as long as your opponent isn't applying, like, an absurd amount of aggression underneath you, you can just sit there, and you always have cards to play. You can just keep running them into whatever your opponent has. You're not going to run out of threats.
Yeah, and plus with your four celestial colonnades, you'll pretty much always have ways to use your mana. So you can afford to play those extra lands. So Lewis makes an interesting play. He just passes, discards his Vengevine, which is an interesting little trick that deck can do. So he picked up some cards. He's like, well, I'm going to bring the Vengevine back. I'll just choose to discard it. I can't see if he has another land or not. But even if he does, he might have just discarded it, so he can cast 2 creatures next turn, bring it back, and suddenly you just have an extra Vengevine coming in. So
now he's almost certainly going to play Linvala next turn if he has the land. The Linvala is very good at blocking swords creatures. It's white and it's 4 toughness. So.
And it does not look like Lewis has that extra land. So the discard of Vengevine, while a good play, is still something he not exactly wanted to do. He's probably going to discard another one here. Yep, so double Vengevine. That could set up a great turn for Justin, but that sword's going to come in here off that Stoneforge Mystic and making things difficult. And he picks back up the Vengevine while he waits for Justin to resolve his end of turn triggers. Then he goes to his discard step, and Vengevine comes down. And now this sort of body in mind is going to get live, which is going to make things rough. Although, comically, he could mill more Vengevines, which is interesting. It's not an optional effect.
It'd be interesting if he milled 2 more Vengevines and then Lou just untapped and played 2 guys.
It could happen, almost certainly. So Justin's considering, am I walking into my doom? Oh, and he steps away from the table to ask a judge a question.
Do I have the option?
I'd imagine what he's asking is if he has to make a mill or something of that nature. But it's unclear. All right, and he's back already. Just a short little intermission with the judge. And it looks like the players are waiting.
Baneslayer Angel seems like it's a really good choice for this tournament. I feel like that card's definitely going to see quite a bit of play. It's very strong against the blue-white Caw-Blade decks, and it fits very well in them. I think as Gideon loses value, people can start playing Baneslayers.
And all right, so here we go. Did Justin just pass the turn back? It looked like he made that kind of motion.
That would be very interesting to me.
No, the game still looks like it's on hold, and Justin leaves the table again. Okay, so Justin has returned, and now he's looking at his hand again, surveying his options. And I'm sure he's still thinking, do I want to equip that sword? And so he does go for it, figuring out where he wants to put it.
He passes the turn.
And he just passes. He is frightened of milling more Vengevines. Positively frightened. And that's just going to give Lewis Laskin more time to build the game up. But Justin playing very carefully. He feels like he has the long game under control, and as long as he doesn't just randomly lose to a swing of 3 Vengevines or potentially 4 Vengevines, he'll have a good chance.
It's a wise play on Justin's part. I mean, he may be stuck on 3 lands, but he understands that the nature of his control deck. And now that he's got his lands untapped again, that he can be free to use those to defend himself, he's probably a little more comfortable.
And so he mills 10 cards. And I couldn't quite catch if there was a Vengevine in there. Let's see, Phyrexian Revoker, some lands, Llanowar Elf.
You saw Glimmer Point Stag?
Yes. I did see a Vengevine, but I'm not sure if that was one that was already in his graveyard as he's tossed.
Yeah, I think he already has 2 there.
Correct. And so So I think it's interesting that Justin decided he was going to attack, and maybe he was just waiting for Lewis to play something. He was like, well, maybe I don't have to put any pressure on him. Maybe Lewis just doesn't have anything anyway. But when that Fauna Shaman came down, Justin realized, well, those Vengevines are getting active anyway, so we're just going to have to start swinging in.
Yeah.
And taps 2, and so he's got Journey to Nowhere.
Justin almost certainly has a counter for this. He just started Squadron Hawk as opposed to playing it, so I guess that it would be a mana leak.
The question is, does he even want to counter it?
Yeah, there's probably not too much value in countering it. You have, you know, a Hawk and a Wolf in play. They can both hold the sword just as well.
And he opts not to. And for those who are just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey here with Jacob Van Lunen, and we're bringing you live coverage of the Star City Games Open Series here in Edison. On your right is Louis Laskin with a kind of innovative green-white deck. He says his best matchup is Cobblade, which is what he's facing right now. And if you look down at the table, his side of the board is he's got a Stoneforge Mystic, a Journey to Nowhere, he's got a Journey to Nowhere with a Stoneforge Mystic on it, and a Fauna Shaman. And then on Justin's side, he's got a Squadron Hawk, with a Sorted Body Mind on it, and 2 Wolf tokens. And Lewis also has at least 2 Vengevines. Now I think that's the 3rd Vengevine in his graveyard. And Justin is playing blue, red, white Cobblade. And he seems to have a pretty stock list. He's got a Baneslayer Angel in the main deck, 61 cards. But other than that, a lot of the same things we've seen before, where Lewis is a much more interesting take. He's got some overwhelming Stampedes, Lead the Stampedes, and the Vengevine Squadron Hawk engine. Lewis managed to take down game 1. And so he pitches and searches for Birds of Paradise, which is almost certainly going to bring some Vengevines back.
Yeah, now Lou has the play of Squadron Hawk, Bird.
Get back 3 Vengevines, attack you for 12.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
And Justin is forced to discard Cunning Sparkmage here. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw Lewis looked pretty far behind earlier in the game. He just had no action, missed a ton of land drops, discarded a bunch of cards, and yeah, here we go. 3 Vengevines back. He just played carefully and diligently.
Ooh,
4
Vengevines.
Vengevines. There was one hiding under that one. So this is 16 points right here. It's exactly what Justin was afraid of with by attacking with that Sorted Body Mind. He just fueled Lewis's spree.
I mean, that's a pretty impressive turn of events.
Yeah. Wow. Just out of nowhere, and I put nowhere in quotation marks, the 4 Vengevines coming out.
Justin eats 8. Now, Justin may mill Lou here. Like, it's only 2 more swings till he's milled, I believe.
Yeah, that's very true, but I don't think he can race those Vengevines even if he's milling. You'd have to have something else to back it up with. I mean, he can serve, get a token, yep, and he's just forced to sit back on the defensive here.
Yeah, I mean, just having 4 Vengevines like that, Lou's deck, is just so powerful.
And yeah, what a amazing card. Oh, here comes Squadron Hawk, bringing back those Vengevines, and they come on in.
And Justin's going to get to eat 1, chump another, but he's going down to 2. I'm surprised Lou didn't serve there with at least another Squadron Hawk. Maybe the Fauna Shaman also. This opponent's just dead if he doesn't have a removal spell then.
Yeah, I mean, he could have attacked with those Squadron Hawks.
Well, the one he just played, but...
Yeah, I mean, if he serves with the Hawk, maybe he was afraid that his opponent's Hawk would just block it, but with the sword on, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, Lewis is a type player. I'm sure he had a pretty good reason for doing that.
Yeah, well, he played both Squadron Hawks this turn. I was thinking that he should have swung with the Fauna Shaman.
Oh, the Shaman. Yeah, perhaps. I mean, let's see. Maybe he has a one of. He feels like maybe he's afraid of like, well, he could potentially lay Baneslayer the next turn, and then I want my Fauna Shaman so I can go find poor Hookmaster or something to deal with his Baneslayer Angel. I don't know if Baneslayer Angel would be enough to save the game for Justin at this point, but I'm sure Laskin has probably done the math on this. Oh, and he packs him in, and Lewis takes down round 2 with his. And Lewis just fans his
still
hand
had all these
of overwhelming stampedes. I know I saw at least one there. There might have been 2.
There was an overwhelming stampede, a lead the stampede, a